Welcome to Pensar Basketball Live. What an exciting blowout victory for the Toronto Raptors who get their first road win since April 5th. We're almost at Christmas. They haven't won a road game since April. Can we enjoy this moment without all the talk about the tank and all that stuff? Jacoby Walter gets his first start. He's 19 years old. He is very slight of build. Now I've been hyping up Jacoby a lot over the last few weeks as he's been going through his G League reps, and everyone kept saying, "Let's see him do it in the NBA. Let's see him do it in the NBA." Well, tonight he did it in the NBA, and I could not be prouder. That dude absolutely balled out. Did not shoot the ball well. Did not shoot the ball particularly well from three, but the in between game, the playmaking, the rebounding. Oh, the Raptors sorely needed that. Another thing the Raptors sorely needed was an Ochai Agbaji bounce back game. After Darko Rajakovic called him out in the last post game, there was a particular Raptors YouTuber, some of you may know him, most of you won't, who said this is not okay. But if you're a head coach, you need to know your players. And I've said this about Darko Rajakovic 100 times. He will scan you up and down. He will analyze you. He will psychologically profile you, and then he will react to you. He will not force you to deal with his way. He will ultimately deal with you your way. And he must have known that Ochai Agbaji needed some negative reinforcement. And boy, did Ochai have the game of his life tonight. Unrecognizable confidence. That shot block at the rim. This was peak Ochai Agbaji. And Lord, it was necessary because the last 6 games for Ochai Agbaji have been absolutely putrid, awful. All of it culminating with that disaster class against Detroit, in which if he had played even halfway decently that game, you probably win. You cannot have 0 rebounds from Ochai Agbaji. Luckily, he didn't get 0 rebounds tonight. Jamison Battle. You got a brilliant game from Jamison Battle, who could not miss tonight, was unconscious, looking all sorts of like Peja Stojakovic out there. He was incredible. Lefty shooter. Those are rookies. I mean, well, 2 of those guys are rookies. Scottie Barnes took a lot of shots tonight. A lot of shots. Okay. And he missed a lot of shots. I'm going to tell you right now, Scottie had a pretty decent game. Not a great game. Definitely nothing like Detroit, but you win. And I am going to talk a lot about what the process is for Scottie and how encouraging a game like this is, given how he started this game 0 for 5 from 3 to continue shooting with confidence. I'll tell you right now, a couple of years ago, if he started the game 0 for 3, 0 for 4 from 3, he doesn't look at the 3 ever again the rest of the game. Tonight, he started out cold. He stayed pretty cold. He took 12. I am very excited about that process, believe me, because if you want this dude to become a superstar, he's going to have to get comfortable with 2 for 12 games from 3 so that he can welcome his 10 for 14 games from 3. And the minute Scottie starts shooting 10 for 14 from 3, now you're going to see guys. Now you're going to see a guy who can actually go off for 35, 45 points every now and again. It's a big step for him to actually do this. Darko Rajakovic deserves his flowers for tonight because while this was a depleted team, the New Orleans Pelicans, and we'll look at the game, I have a lot of thoughts about this game. So I hope y'all will bear with me because it's going to disrupt the normal format. Obviously, we're going to go to the callers. We're going to go to the game film. We're going to go through, some of the highlights. We're going to go through the stats. We're going to do all that. But I just need to talk about this game for a second because I think that that's important. And maybe that's why some of y'all are here. You want to hear what I thought and what I noticed. And maybe it's something that you noticed as well. And you can call in. Maybe it's something that you disagree with and you can call in. We can talk about that too. In order for a star to be a star, they must become comfortable with taking chances, missing, having bad games. Michael Jordan had plenty of 10 for 29 games. Plenty. Not when they counted usually, but he took a lot of those games. Kobe had a ton of those games. I'll tell you when I knew Kobe Bryant was special. When he airballed all those threes when in the playoffs and everyone started to hate him and boo him and he just kept taking them. That's the mindset of a killer. Now, the only thing that has ever made me pause and say, maybe I'm wrong about Scottie being a superstar is when he gets timid and he stops taking shots when things aren't going his way. And tonight, things weren't going his way and he kept playing, kept dominating, dominated the glass, did a great job as a playmaker, great job communicating, great energy, took multiple hits to the face, and he just kept playing through it. And I thought that was very encouraging. Kept shooting, didn't go away from it. Had a couple tough finishes, kept going back to it. That's what you got to do. That's the mindset of a scorer. You got to keep going. You know the mindset of a role player? I took 2 shots. This is not my night. Let me pass it off. That's the mindset of a role player. Do you know how difficult it is to turn the mindset of a role player into the mindset of a superstar? Man, it is so difficult. Jonathan Mobo, another example of a guy who has been taking longer shots and has been, generally speaking, in the better places. Darko Rajovic brought it up. He has the green light for me. He can take them if he wants. That's what he said. Jamal Shed, same thing. Jamal Shed, we need him to take threes. It doesn't matter if you're missing them. Jamal Shed has hit a 3 in every one of the last 3 games. These are really positive growth stories for the Toronto Raptors, a Toronto Raptors team that is now moved to 5-14, a Toronto Raptors team that is still very firmly at the bottom of the East, but slowly climbing over the last 5 games, and a Toronto Raptor team that frankly has a lot of young players that need a lot of growing up to do if they're going to be good next year. Now, we did a draft video today, and some of y'all are very excited about those 10, 12 players that we talked about. I don't necessarily think beating the New Orleans Pelicans necessarily derails your tank in any significant way. Clearly, you can make the case that you're not going to catch the Washingtons now. You weren't going to catch Washington anyway because you have to face Washington a few times, and you're not out tanking that team. So forget the tank for a second and think about the longer-term process of development. The development of these young players, the development of assets, is ultimately what is going to get you from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. And I think that if you are somebody who is invested in the long-term future of the Toronto Raptors, you must be smiling from ear to ear tonight. Jacoby Walter was fantastic. We're going to look at some of his tape. We're going to look at everything that he did tonight. He was a real focus of my game. I found out a few hours before the game that he was starting, and that was really cool because I've broken quite a few stories. I'm not a newsbreaker. I'm not Woj. I'm not Shams. But as it pertains to the Raptors, despite not really having a blue check mark and despite not having all those media sources, I've broken quite a few little stories over the last little bit. If you've been paying attention, I broke the Vince Carter jersey retirement, technically on record. I broke Jacoby starting tonight, and I've broken a couple of other things as well. And Jacoby starting was new music to my ears because I spent pretty much like half an hour on the panel, like just talking shit about Davion Mitchell and how it's so bad for having a player who does not make good decisions with the basketball, does not shoot well, starting in the lineup. And I think he absolutely opened the floodgates. Jacoby's spacing was so instrumental in that first quarter. The Raptors kept missing. Jamison Battle came off the bench and broke this game open. Let's take a look at it. I also believe that Jacoby was incredible defensively, and we'll take a look at a little bit of that too. Like, his rebounding is such a game changer for the Raptors. And, you know, Gradey is supposed to be a pretty good rebounder. He hasn't been a great rebounder this year. But if Gradey and Ochai and Jacoby can rebound the way that I know they can, Immanuel Quickley is already a pretty good rebounder. You know, you get Immanuel Quickley, all your guards are pretty good rebounders, with the exception of pretty much Davion Mitchell, who is a pretty much non-rebounder. So I think that it is Jacoby the future. Love it. Cool. Super chat here from Jay Powell. Jacoby has a grown man game. He's gonna be a problem. Absolutely. He's you know, talking about him reminded me a little bit of one of my favorite players, 2 of my favorite players, Allen Houston and Latrell Sprewell. He did some Latrell Sprewell stuff tonight. Overall, the game was a blowout. And if you're a Raptor fan, like, I got to tell you, you're probably not used to this. We haven't had a blowout victory this year. It feels kind of good. It feels kind of good to be twiddling your thumbs in the third quarter like, this is what it feels like to be a good team for once. 119-93. At one point, the Raptors were leading 87-57. They didn't just pull away late. This was a blowout pretty much from the second quarter. When the Raptors got up 46-40, Ochai makes a 3. Ochai makes a 3. It was back-to-back threes from Ochai, and we're going to take a look at both those threes. From that point on, it was like the New Orleans Pelicans basically gave up on this game. There was no fight, no energy. Their defense was absolutely terrible. Their offense, their decision-making, even Jack Armstrong called it out like, what are you doing? Dejounte Murray, CJ McCollum, that was not it. They make a lot of money, and they're pretty good players, but this is not a good team. This is an absolutely terrible team. And tonight, they were missing their best player, their second best player, their third best player, and their fourth best player. Let me be clear about that. Trey Murphy makes a big difference in this game. Herb Jones would have made a huge difference in this game. Zion and Brandon Ingram would have made a difference in this game. Would it have tilted it away from the Pelicans' favor? Possibly. The Raptors are known to be pretty bad on the road. Hence, they have not won on the road since April. But I do think a win is a win. You are not completely healthy. You face a team that has also been decimated by injuries, and you took care of business, and you get the monkey off your back. You finally went on the road. They shot a blistering 40% from three, which is absolutely insane when you consider how poorly Scottie and Jacoby shot it. But they shoot 47 for 95. They shoot 49.5% from the field. They were pretty good in there for the most part. 40% from three. They shoot piss poor from the line, missing 8 free throws out of 12, which is crazy. And luckily for them, it didn't require a tremendous amount. Look at the 38 assists, though. 38 assists. The ball moved. It was on a string. Nobody held it. I mean, for the most part, nobody held it. This was a game that Darko Rajakovic has pretty much been preaching the entire time. Spacing, pacing, three-pointers. It was a very, very impressive game in that sense. You didn't drag everything down to accommodate, Jakob Poeltl and Davion pick and roll as everyone stands around. No, the ball was moving. It was humming. The Pelicans' transition defense is absolutely terrible, so it didn't matter. 17 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists for Scottie Barnes with 5 turnovers. He's had 7 for 23 from the field, 2 for 12 from 3. If you're someone who's worried about the percentage on that, 2 for 12 equates to 16.6%, if my math is correct. I don't care about 16% from 3. I care about 12 attempts. That's all I care about. For a guy who has notoriously shied away from taking threes, he was absolutely instrumental in that. And sorry, what I'm trying to say is it's a big deal for him to get up that many attempts. RJ Barrett, 8 for 15. He had a horrible first quarter, but he had a really good bounce back in the second and third quarter. He had a near triple-double, 22 points, 11 assists, 8 rebounds. Really competent game, 4 turnovers, plus 23. Ochai Agbaji went 9 for 10 from the field and 6 for 7 from 3. 24 points, 6 rebounds, and they did not stop him well at all. He was open so often, you had to just scratch your head and be like, how can you guys not see that this guy is blistering hot? How do you not stop him? But hey, that's their prerogative. Speaking of stat stuffers, 14 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 3 turnovers to Ja'Kobe Walter. I thought he was brilliant. The Raptors that's not a typo. The Raptors got a combined 2 points from Chris Boucher and Jakob Poeltl in a combined 43 minutes. Bruno Fernando outscored them both in 6 minutes. That's the crazy part. Jonathan Mobile with 4 points. Jamison Battle with 24 points. I can't remember the last time a Raptors had 24 points off the bench. It's probably Chris Boucher at some point, but I just can't remember it. And definitely not this efficiently. 9 for 11. Now, if you're saying, yo, Rob, why don't we just run the offense through the guys who made the shots? Yo, the guys who are making the shots are making them because the guys who aren't making the shots are sucking the defense away. And that is a very, very important thing to realize. Their defensive plan was to shut down Scottie and RJ. And Scottie and RJ took really hard shots so that their teammates could take easy shots tonight. And I think that that's important to realize. And I think that it's important that they stayed offensively aggressive even when their shot wasn't going in. RJ was relatively efficient until he missed a couple late, which kind of screwed up his percentages a little bit. But RJ Barrett has been miserable on the road. This is his best road performance of the year. So big bounce back for him. Everybody bounced back. It was great. It was a great game. Okay, let's take a look at some film, man, because the film is going to be like the film from this game is just, it's some good shit. That's all I'm going to say. It's some good stuff. Okay, we're going to start out with a beautiful transition play, which goes from defense to offense. Take a look at this. Now, Ochai is going to get this block, right? But again, like I said, my favorite shot blockers, you keep it inbounds. And then we are going to see an RJ Barrett fast break. And then he's going to do for Scottie what Gradey has often done for him, which is lay that up and serve it to him That was beautiful. Scottie really needed that make at that point. He was doing pretty poorly. Scottie Barnes finally makes a three after missing 5 straight. Now, again, I'll say it again. I am insanely proud of this guy for taking 12. Just like I'm consistent on this. Y'all remember that Boston game where I keep highlighting that Boston game. I'm like, oh man, like he took 15 threes. And I was like, I don't even care that he made 7. I don't care that he made 8. I don't care that he made 9. His shooting form is fine. Like for the most part, there's going to be a game where he's going to go 8 for 12 and this balances out. But you'll never go 8 for 12 if you refuse to take 12. And that's important. Now, Yves Missi is a very, very good defender. And watch what he does to RJ Barrett here. Really just awesome. Forces this turnover. And really tough night in the first quarter. First, I want to say first 18 minutes of the game were really tough for RJ Barrett. Okay. Now, this is where the game broke open, and it was a pair of passes from RJ to Ochai. This is the first one. So again, you see the Raptors are down 38-40, and RJ is going to slip this pass across to Ochai, and number 4 is just way too late. And then, literally the next play down, he's going to do the same thing on the other corner. And as you know, Ochai Agbaji is absolutely beastly from the corners. So here's Ochai. Great little manipulation in the middle of defense. You see how much defensive attention RJ has sucked in here. And the Pelicans, again, ignoring their matchups here. Dejounte Murray used to be a really good defender. He has long arms and he's able to contest this. That might have been one of the more contested 3-pointers that Ochai Agbaji hit tonight, but really big shot for him. And that pretty much broke the game open. Like those 2 threes, that was the opening of the floodgates. And then suddenly everyone started going. Now, this was absolutely crazy. Wait, I'm missing a play here. Hang on. I definitely missed one. 1 second here. Let me just go back a little bit. Yeah, I missed a couple. Here, let me just go back for a second. This was Jacoby Walter's first 3-pointer, and it was on a play from RJ. And I want to take a moment to just highlight this moment between Jacoby and Davion, because I've spent a lot of time maligning Davion Mitchell, but I just want to say something nice for a change, and just say that this moment, you know, encouraging the rook who basically just took your starting spot, right, is really just the type of stuff that good teams do that bad teams never do, right? It's really important to realize that, like, he is selfless. He may have issues as a basketball player for sure, but he is great for your team culture. Davion is like a very, very good person to have around winning organizations because he cares about winning. He cares about the defense. He cares about pickup points. It's just the limitations that bother me. It's the narrative around him that bothers me a little bit. But overall, you see a moment like that, and you realize, especially for a 19-year-old starting his first NBA game, to get that kind of mentorship and that kind of leadership from a guy who he admires so much. And some of y'all may not know this, but Jacoby literally went to Baylor because of Davion Mitchell. That was one of the big reasons. He said, you know, I went there because of him. And so you see that moment between them and you're just like, damn, like he really is a good dude. Okay. Now this was crazy. Just absolutely nuts. Now Jacoby turns this over, but he gets it back, ironically, from another Baylor Bear, Yves Missi. And then seeing the defense, the fact that he was willing to try this, even though it's a little bit off target, oh my God. Like from a scouting perspective, he made a couple dimes tonight, which are like, now all the scouts that said he could not play make are going to look so dumb, because he had 5 assists tonight. And I don't think he had 5 assists in a single game for Baylor last year. I'm willing to bet he didn't have a single assist. A single 5 assist game at Baylor. So I just think that he was just so impressive tonight as a playmaker. And he made a couple of potential assists that just didn't go down. But yeah, this is a bad defensive play from RJ Barrett, but also a very smart offensive play from Yves Missi. Watch this. So you probably missed this in real time, but RJ has been criticized a lot defensively this year, largely because he offers up switches that don't need to be switched up. Like, this is not something you can't get around. This is just lazy, and now you're forcing Jakob Poeltl to guard this big, and you're creating this terrible rotation for Ochai Agbaji to have to deal with Yves Missi. So I just thought that was an interesting thing where Yves Missi kind of hooked his hand a little bit. So that was a very smart move. But also, this is the type of play that RJ gets burned on all the time. Okay. We talked about that play. We talked about those plays. We talked about that play. Okay. Here's a little bit more Ja'Kobe Walter. And again, just everything he was doing in the G League, man. He was doing the shit in the G League too. And if you watch that little clip that we put together of him, this is exactly what almost every possession in the G League looks like. Now, what you're not seeing in this is what happens when he becomes stronger and he's not getting bumped when he goes up. This is a guy who relentlessly attacks the paint. This is a guy who rebounds, but he is rebounding in spite of the fact that he is like 190 pounds dripping wet right now. So when you take that into account, sorry, music. Sorry. Okay. Ja'Kobe Walter. Boom, baby. Great spacing, terrible defense. Late contest from CJ McCollum. Too late. Ja'Kobe gets his second three of the night, which was great. And then we see another play where he is going to beat CJ McCollum off the dribble. Little head fake, and then boom. And then he's going to beat Yves Missi. But what's really impressive about this was he did not project this pass. He looked to score the entire time. And that's why Jakob Poeltl is so open. Now, Yak is going to blow this because Yak blew goddamn everything tonight. He had a really, really terrible game. But it does not change the fact that this is a great pass. Like, these are real combo guard skills that he's showing. And I've been saying it all year, and don't accuse me of front running here. I've been telling y'all all year pretty much that not all year, all this season, that he is a better playmaker than he showed at Baylor. And yeah, let's take a look at some of Jamison Battle's threes. Nice corner lefty. That shot is butter smooth. 14 points at that point, 5 for 5, 4 for 4, like really crazy. He finally missed one eventually, but like you see this and you're just like, okay, this guy is going to be here for a long time. You can happily invest in your 77 Toronto Raptors jersey because this dude is not going anywhere. Like, absolutely. He's been awesome. Okay. A little bit of a troll on Davion Mitchell. I felt, like being funny. He loses his dribble there. And then this is going to be like the easiest pick ever for Elfrid Payton. Payton was literally in Portugal for the last 2 years. So he's not like really an NBA player at this point. But yeah. Now watch how quickly the Raptors get this ball up the court. Now we've been talking about pace a lot this year. Okay. We're talking about how when you lack talent, you need to move the ball fast. Here, Scottie is going to use the fact that Dejounte Murray gambled on this, gets behind the play. He's not going to waste time. Okay. He could easily dribble this up himself and try to cook the defender, but he is going to make the right pass, which is to RJ Barrett. Now, the question remains, is RJ Barrett going to make the right pass once Jordan Hawkins loses the cutter behind him, which is Jamison Battle? And is Jamison Battle going to do right thing, which is cut into the open paint because Yves Missi is too high? And yes, he is. And Yves Missi is not there in time, and Jamison Battle is going to get that. And by the way, when he took that dunk, 20 seconds left on the clock. They ran that ball up in 4 seconds, which is awesome. Now, an encouraging moment for a player who is a little bit undersized, like Davion Mitchell, but has a lot of burst and a lot of verve, but hasn't been finishing well, hasn't been shooting well this year. He had himself a game. And watch him freeze the bigger defender with the threat to shoot. It's just going to be a moment that he needs to lock the defender in this moment. And that was it. Boom. Change of pace. Okay. I'm going to tell you this right now. Is it a long shot that Jamal Shed will have a very long career in the NBA? Yes. But it is a long shot I am willing to take every time because he is a guy who has a very special talent to be something more than what he is right now. And what he is right now is a third string point guard, a role player, and a shooting liability. I think he can outwork his limitations and become a really serviceable backup guard akin to a TJ McConnell. I think he'll get there one day. Not exactly that type of player, but that level of impact. I really do think the Raptors have absolutely nailed every one of these draft picks this year. 5 rookies. I think you went 5 for 5. Speaking of rookies that you went 5 for 5 on, look at this shifty handle and that lefty finish. Yo, this dude is 19 years old. This is his first NBA start. This is his 5th NBA game. The fact that he is able to wiggle the defense this way, I am just lost for words. Absolute lost for words. Now he's going to put his defender in jail, get him on his hip, and then take this beautiful little floater. Yo, this is a 19-year-old. I keep saying that because his game is so absolutely mature. But his body is that, like, to borrow a term from Darko Rajakovic, he has the body of a 16-year-old. Yo, Jacoby has the body of a 16-year-old. He's a kid, okay? This is a kid doing this against grown men. Now, I'll remind you that there was a certain scout that had Jacoby Walter as the 3rd pick in last year's draft at this time last year. The December mock drafts had Jacoby really high. And we can talk about why he slipped because I don't agree with why he slipped, okay? And I remained higher than 19 on him throughout the year. But right towards the end of the year, I sort of bought the Kool-Aid and I was like, all right, if this many people are low on him, and I got to tell you, like, when I went back and I watched his link tape, I cannot believe this kid slipped. And look, this is no secret. I am an Yves Missi super fan. Super fan. Okay? I am a person who blurted out what the F when we passed on Yves Missi for Jacoby Walter. If there's anybody this year who should be doing victory laps of like, oh, while Jacoby was struggling, because Jacoby has been horrible for the Raptors. Before this game, he has been bad. But you see the process. I'm talking impact level. Yves Missi has not been horrible. Yves Missi has been amazing. The Raptors broadcast spent like a good 5 minutes just talking about what a brilliant defender, athlete, motor this kid has. So very easily, I could have come out and been like, see, told you Yves Missi was the right pick. Yves Missi was 9th, 10th, 11th on my board throughout the year. Jacoby was consistently 13th to 16th. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Once you understand it, you can't ununderstand it. And at no point during Yves Missi doing really well and Jacoby doing very poorly have I ever said I was right. No. Draft night, I was wrong. The day after the draft, I changed my mind, and I'm very happy I did. So, 5-star recruit. And why did he fall? Why did he fall? Why did Jamal Shed fall? Why did Jamison Battle fall? Why did Ulrich fall? Why did all of these kids fall? Because I'll tell you right now, I'll guarantee you right now, you know that Charles Barkley guarantee, I'll guarantee that we do a redraft of this draft in 5 years, all of those players are going to go higher than where the Raptors took them. 100%. So where did Jacoby, where should Jacoby have gone? Jacoby should have been a lottery pick. 100% he should have been a lottery pick. I don't know over who. Maybe over Matas Buzelis, maybe over like one of the other guards. Maybe he could have gone as high as 5. I'm understanding that he was not in contention at 5, but this kid has some real wiggle and some real burst and some real length to him. The big draw or the big criticism against him was that he didn't play make enough for others. Well, I think the Baylor system asked him to not do that. I think they asked him to score, and I think that's what he did. And when he was doing it in bunches, it looked great. And then when he had a cold streak, it didn't look great. But we don't ever know in a 36, 37 game season, right? If you had to contextualize Gradey Dick on the basis of last year, first half, you would say he's a second round pick. If you contextualize him on the basis of this year, you would say he's a top 10 pick. So in both cases, we're talking very small sample sizes. So when you look at Jacoby's link tape, you notice a few things. You notice very special movement patterns. You see a lot more playmaking. And that's what I was very curious to see. Will that translate? Will all that activity, all that motor, that relentless pursuit of getting to the rim, the shiftiness? He is working with more space than he's ever had in his life. He never had this much space in high school. He never had this much space in college. Baylor did not have great spacing. They were not a great spacing team, in my opinion. Now he's playing on a team that doesn't have great spacing. What happens when you play on a team that does have great spacing? What happens when you pair Jacoby Walter and Gradey Dick and, I don't know, Jamison Battle at the 4, Scottie at the 5, Immanuel Quickley at the 1? Now Jacoby is going to have the most space he's ever had in his entire life. And that is where a guy who can shift his hips this way and really manipulate the defense a little bit and get to the front of the rim is going to live at the free throw line. And that's when he's going to get open shots. And that's when he's going to get those catch and shoots. I think his projection should be much higher than just simply a serviceable role player. The Raptors have a real foundational piece. He's a really good player. He's a really good player. I cannot stop talking about Jacoby Walter, like literally for the last 2 weeks. Y'all know this. I've been talking a lot about him, made a live about him. Okay, made videos about him, G League coverage, all that stuff. Largely, I'm just so insanely proud of this kid because he stuck with it. A lot of people lose their season after a tough start. Not resilient dudes. He's a resilient dude. Okay. And yeah, I'm just, it was insanely. Davion Brooks saying the movement patterns. Absolutely. You got to see how kids move. You got to see how these guys are moving around the basketball court. Are they lumbering? Are they stiff? Are they rigid? Or are they fluid? You know, you need fluid movement patterns if you're going to be a guard in the NBA. You need certain hitchless elements to your game. You need to be quick, of course, but you need to be decisive. I don't care how fast you start. I care way more about how fast you stop. And he stops on a dime. He stops on a dime. Why do you think he's losing defenders everywhere? When he puts that defender in jail, that defender has like 12 years of NBA experience. He has 12 minutes of NBA experience. Jack saying crazy thing is he's able to hold himself at the defensive end. Yo, like he is incredibly pesky defensively. I clipped a ton of highlights of him just guarding the basketball. And Mohammed Hussein saying, Rob, wait until the Sixers get Cooper flagged. Cool. I mean, that's their prerogative. A couple more super chats here. Liam, Yves was Jacoby's roommate at Baylor. Homies, absolutely. Bueno Kitty saying, hold the tank, grab the pizza, fourth quarter gang. Yo, Bueno Kitty, what's going on, man? Okay, let's get to the first caller. Tonius, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going, Rob? Well, it feels good to get this win, but we are all going to take this game with a large grain of salt because you know how depleted they are. But it is kind of hilarious with the Zion publicity of him getting a tattoo, and they're just serving him like plates of pasta, which is like, I don't know. You could serve it up better than that with the oxymorons and like you see his belly and the pointy man titties. It's pretty hilarious. So I think Darko really wanted this game because I think when it got to the mid of the second quarter, he just sat Davion down, and then we started finally properly pulling away, and then Jacoby when he came in, he definitely evened out the entire balance of this game, and then everything, and then we just took over the entire thing, but it's a good thing you mentioned to us that Davion at least has given us something positive where you saw him do that little mentorship.
Absolutely. Look, I want to be clear about the Davion situation. Obviously, I've been on a bit of a campaign, if you haven't noticed, over the last couple of weeks to painfully, sometimes annoyingly remind people that Davion Mitchell is not an NBA level player. Okay. That doesn't mean he's not a good person. Doesn't mean he's not a great teammate. Doesn't mean he's not, a fantastic dude. And it doesn't mean that I'm not rooting for him. I'm just being objective about what I see. You know what I mean? Like I am unfortunately a little bit blunt. Okay. So, I mean, if I have a kid someday and they're like, Dad, can I go to the NBA? Like, you might expect me to say, sure, son, whatever you want. But I'm probably going to see, like, no. I'm just going to be like very dry about it. And that's just sort of how I was raised. It's like the truth is the truth is the truth. Like you can't run from it. You can't hide from it. I don't give a shit about your narratives. I'm not trying to gas somebody up. I'm trying to be 100% correct with this community. If I tell you that Davion Mitchell is, a backup level point guard and a really great backup point guard, and you start to buy into that hype, and then you find out later he's out of the league next year, you're going to tell me I was stupid. Or at least there's going to be a mistrust that's going to start. If I tell you Jacoby Walter is awesome, which I have been doing for months now, and saying just wait for this kid, be patient. And then he comes out and he's, like in the G League 2 years from now. That's trust. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here?
It's facts, right? What we see on the floor, because again, if you do see Davion with that ball, our offense is stalling. And then the only benefit we can get out of this all is at least Davion is at heart is kind of aware of it, and he's kind of at least putting himself accountable. I think at least he's kind of showing us that he's trying, but again, it's just like a habitual thing where I don't think he could shake it at the rate it's looking like.
Yeah, I think the handle is a little bit tough, right? For like, it's not shifty enough. He's not dynamic enough with the basketball to manipulate the defense. He's not big. He has somewhat stumpy legs. He's a little bit, heavy at the base, but he's not like bursty. He's just strong. Like he's like a linebacker, he's a football player basically.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about like what makes a great defender. In terms of like great offensive players don't care if you contest their shot. They're going to make the shot, right?
Yeah.
Great offensive players like Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, superstars, they don't even see your contests. Like they've been shooting with a hand in their face their whole lives. So they do not care. What they do care about is that you make it really weird for them. Like you do something that bumps them off their stop before. So basically with role players, you can react to them. With superstars, you must make them react to you, which means you must be extremely physical with them. And you must bump them off their spots. And you must deflect the ball. And you must poke the ball. And you must physically just wear them down. And that's the kind of stuff that Davion is so great at. He's great at disrupting rhythm. He just pulls players off rhythm. And I think that is such a great thing to have in a practice player, because Jamal Shead is going to get better playing against Davion Mitchell. Immanuel Quickley, if he can get healthy, is going to get much better playing against Davion Mitchell. Davion Mitchell is going to make everybody on this team better, which is amazing. Doesn't mean he's an NBA player.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. Darko Rajakovic is making everyone on this team better too. He's not an NBA player either. So it's a bit of a catch-22 where I think in a weird way, yes, you did take on $8 million of salary on an ex-lottery pick who has almost no chance of keeping an NBA job long term. Yeah, but you decided to do it for a guy who is so positively influencing your culture, your habits, your pickup point, and your development. So that's where I think I've often called that Sacramento Kings trade with the Toronto Raptors one of the greatest trades in Raptors history. It's looking better by the day.
Yeah, fundamental. And Portland lost. Portland lost tonight. They just need about 50 more losses.
Sure. And Cleveland lost tonight, which was very surprising to the Atlanta Hawks. So a team that we desperately need to catch, the Atlanta Hawks, is now, trailing away a little bit. And there's a lot, I think where you started this conversation was the right tone, which is this must be taken with a bit of a grain of salt. You beat a depleted team that is awful. I think it's worth noting, not to rain on anyone's parade, the Raptors have beat 5 teams this year. Do you know them by memory?
Yeah, it's Philly injured, super injured. And then Minnesota was worthy but the chemistry issues. But again, it was worthy because they did have the talent to beat us. Who was the other one? Indy, injured.
Indiana.
Indy was injured. And then, I'm pretty much
beat Sacramento.
Sacramento was kind of injured, but they have
healthy. They were relatively healthy. But I think they were missing Kevin Huerter.
Oh yeah,
They
Jordan
had
Herter.
Monk, Fox, they had DeMar DeRozan, they had everybody.
Oh, but they have a fundamental error, and if they didn't draft Davion with that pick, they could have been better. So yeah, I think they're. I don't think they're going to ever still until they make a really miraculous, crazy trade to rob teams. They might get to an Western Conference, but I think Sacramento is going to stay mediocre forever still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, what I wanted to ask you was, do you know what all the teams the Raptors have beat have in common?
Do they have a suspect perimeter defense or no perimeter defense philosophy?
I mean, yes, but that wasn't what I was aiming at.
Yeah.
They are all below 500. Every team you've beat is below 500. Indiana is below 500. Minnesota is below 500. And they were all on, prior to tonight, they were all games that those teams lost on the road. So you were beating sub 500 teams on the road, as in you were the home team. So this is a bit of a, smoking a team like this, getting the positives that you can from this, right? Who really carried this win today?
Yeah,
Scottie, RJ, Jacoby, Ochai, Jameson. Guess what? They're all long-term fits for your team. At least they're on long-term deals. They're long-term contracts. You did not have a Jakob Poeltl, Bruce Brown, Chris Boucher lifting moment. Sometimes I care way more about how you win than if you win. I don't give a shit if you beat the New Orleans Pelicans.
Mm-hmm.
I would lose zero amount of sleep. The Raptors were actually favored to lose this game by Vegas odds.
Oh yes, by like 2 points, 2 or 3 points.
Yeah, it was a 1.5 point spread, and I was just like, oh my god, like I don't believe in sports betting, but take $1 million and put it on Raptors under 10.5. Yeah, like it was so obvious that the Raptors are going to win this game. I wrote it in my preview that this should be an easy win, and yes, the second you see that Trey Murphy and Brandon Ingram are not playing, yeah, it should be an easy win. But the Raptors have been known to screw up easy wins. And then when I saw that Davion was not starting, I was like, okay, we're good.
Yes,
we're going to blow the shit out of them. So yeah, I mean, it was a good victory. It's obviously nothing to get carried away with. None of these victories have been anything to get carried away with. Indiana was injured, 100%. They were missing almost all their good defenders, and yes, you beat them, but they are bad. And Sacramento is not a good team right now. They are playing bound. They're not even playing bound. They're in the lottery right now. Okay. In the Western Conference, they are a very bad defensive team, and they make a lot of, and you took a 0 for 11 3-point shooting from De'Aaron Fox. And it wasn't even like you were guarding him that well. Like you were guarding him pretty well. And it was a big game from Davion Mitchell, ironically. Like that was his biggest game of the season where he won. So yeah, I mean, it's nothing to get too carried away with. It's 5 wins. Like the worst team in the league history has won more than 5 games, right? So there's still plenty of time to lose some games later. I just don't think the Raptors are going to bottom out the way some people think they're going to bottom out.
No, because, well, not just plainly because of the players that injured or coming back, but I think we still have like holes on this team that these players are going to like the best. It's painful. I don't know by this trade deadline, because I think if a GM can bite on it, if we can get a GM to bite on it, it's going to be Yak and Davion if we're lucky, and it could be RJ. RJ might be given more time, but if there's a deal, like 2 first-round picks in the next 2 years, or I don't know,
you're not getting 2 first-round picks for RJ Barrett. No. However, I will say that because RJ Barrett and Davion Mitchell were technically salary dumped, I do think Ochai was also technically salary dumped. In a sense, he wasn't like, it wasn't necessarily a salary dump, but to some extent it was. Like, it's like the Utah Jazz were like, you know what? We don't value this guy at all. We're willing to give him up for a terrible first-round pick in a really weak draft. And
was it George, the guy from Miami? Or
no. What?
Oh, okay.
George? No. They didn't take Keyshawn George. They took Isaiah Collier. So
I was using Collier.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, the fact that they dumped him, the Knicks dumped RJ. I mean, these are all technically guys who are second draft guys now.
Technically, RJ is like getting back the Siakam where his defense deteriorated, and watching him drive to the net, to the rim, isolated is frustrating. So it's kind of like you never really lost Siakam. And then, yeah. So, okay. So, yeah, I got to be going to sleep soon. But, I want to say, I went to my first 905 game, and I actually saw Ulrich and Jacoby live. And on the SeatGeek, I just took a $45 ticket and sat pretty close. So, yeah, Jacoby's dimensions are looking up close. Jacoby's dimensions are pretty crazy. I can't believe how long his arms actually are on his frame. So I think what he's got, so he doesn't, we all see he doesn't play with the speed, but he doesn't try to play too fast for himself. But again, we see like his hesitation right now. It's not elite yet, but it's useful. It's really kind of nice that he can kind of doesn't need to do a crossover. He just kind of does this hezzy, and then he kind of does this little fake. But he's got a strong enough of a frame to kind of go a little misdirection and bump, and then it's really interesting. And
I think he's going to get so much stronger, and when he can take contact at the rim, instead of going backwards, he's going to go forward and into the rim. He's not like an explosive athlete, but he's a very good athlete. I don't know how to explain it. So like his balance and coordination are elite. Yes. Like he does not fall off balance very easily.
Yeah.
He has a really great ability to stop.
Yeah.
And start.
Yeah.
It's not like Jaden Ivey or John Morant where he's bursting to the basket at all one speed. No, it's like 14 different speeds in one drive. And that ability to control your body is always going to put the defense on balance, off balance. Added with the fact that he's a 3-level scorer. Add into the fact that he's like a good 3-point shooter, and teams are often going to run him off the line. This guy is going to beast for the Raptors. He is like 100% right now comparing Jacoby Walter to Terrence Ross as a prospect. I take Jacoby 10 times out of 10 and twice on a Sunday. Like it's not even close. And Ross turned into a pretty decent like NBA player.
Yeah, but
not a superstar, but like an NBA player. So
until the league found out that if you kind of contest him a little bit on a fast break, he's going to shy away from contact. So,
and that's the other thing. The fact that he enjoys contact at this age, the fact that he enjoys contact despite he's so tough. Like he's just so insane.
We saw his rebounding. We saw his rebounding tonight, and everybody knew he just had a shoulder injury. He says, "I don't care. I'm going to just take that ball. I don't care."
Yeah,
that's what I saw in that's what I saw in the 905 as well. And then Ulrich was Ulrich was pretty interesting too. But again,
was it insane to watch him live? Like, did he move faster than you expected?
He moved. It's just different when you're on the floor. You're kind of on the floor and you see him.
Right. Yeah.
But he did move like how I kind of expected him to move, which is pretty fast. But again, you could kind of see now that his core. Yeah. Again, it's early, but you could tell his core is not set yet. He is still going to get pushed around. But again, like I think the whole character of this team is that I think we got Mobo. So with Mobo and Shed and Jacoby and even Gradey Dick, most count him as recent draft. I think they're all types of guys that they're willing to take an elbow to the face, and then they really don't care if they get hit. So it's going with there's a very common characteristic. So it's good to see. And then another bonus, because we're against the Long Island Nets, so they have that Chinese national player that's sent to the Long Island Nets. So I was sitting beside these two guys who are from China, and then they were all just watching Chi to do something. And then there's this kind of guy. There's this other Chinese guy wearing Chi's jerseys from China, and then they were all just like videotaping him, just waiting for him to like at least do something. And then when he finally scored a bucket, they were like making a lot of noise. So that was actually pretty funny to see.
That's dope. Well, I'm glad you went to the 905, and I hope more people join you by going to the 905. I would love for these kids who are there, Jacoby occasionally, Jamal occasionally, Ulrich. I would love for them to get more support. You know, that's like my biggest mission of the year is to make sure everyone knows this Raptors rookie class, because I think 5 years from now, you know, just the way that today we talk about, oh, remember how we got Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam and Norman Powell? I feel like one day we're going to be like, You remember in 2024 when Masai
Powell.
Ujiri cooked the
Yeah.
entire league in one offseason and put together an entire bench for a championship core? Like,
Yeah.
these players are all they have like, I often talk about, like, is this guy an actual NBA player? You know, because a lot of rookies aren't. Like, they're not actual NBA players. You hope that they'll become NBA players. James Wiseman's not an NBA player. You're just hoping that all that physical potential turns into an NBA player. You drafted 5 dudes who are, like, I'll guarantee are all going to be NBA players. Like, and that's really what you need. Like, you need young players who are actual NBA talents that you can develop. Ulrich at 18, yeah. If you put him on an NBA court, he's going to be deer in the headlights. But he has every tool to be a really good player in the NBA. They didn't pick a single player, in my opinion, who has some glaring deficiency that would stop them from being a really good player at the next level. So I think this is just a brilliant chat. A brilliant year for the Raptors.
It was a well-conducted draft. Especially, we made the most out of like everything.
We walked in with nothing. We had a 19th overall pick and a 31st overall pick, and we walked out with 5 rookies. I don't know how we did it. And we walked out without Jalen McDaniels.
Oh, man.
It's literally the greatest accomplishment that any,
Yes.
I don't think enough respect is being shown for just how great
and
the
made
Raptors
sure
did this
and made sure we left without Gary Trent Jr. too, because I was getting so frustrated with that guy.
Have you been watching Gary in Milwaukee?
Oh yeah.
Oh dear God.
Just like call me like to the level of a Vince Carter hater, but I'm not being a Vince Carter hater at all. I've forgiven him like a while ago anyways. But to Gary, I still can't get over Gary doing this. We were in Utah, and then I think we were seeing Walker Kessler the first time. But Gary got a steal. Delano Batten was back from an injury, and he was right under the bucket, and Gary looked him off wide open and went for the dunk instead of passing it, make a little baby bounce pass to Delano Batten for Ben to either get a dunk or a little layup. I mean, if this was like a good Gary, if Gary was actually a good NBA player, he would have passed it to Delano Batten, have Batten score an easy bucket, and slap Batten in the ass and try to hype him up. But what happened also is when Gary scored, Nick Nurse still let Gary play. Because I think if it was under Darko's watch, would you think Darko bench Gary for doing that? I don't think he would, but I think he might have would have given him a talk if that happened, if they were to switch places.
Yeah, I'm going to explain it probably like right after we get off this call if there are no more callers. But I want to talk about advantage registration and advantage extension and all that stuff. But Gary just does not see advantages very well. Anyways, man, Tonius, thanks a lot for calling. Appreciate you as always. Cheers.
Okay. Have a good one.
Have a good one. Okay, let's talk about how difficult it is to score for Anthony Edwards and Scottie Barnes and guys who, generally speaking, are playing with less spacing than optimal, right? So it's very easy to look at a guy like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or a Luka Doncic, guys who consistently play with great spacing, and say, well, why can't everyone else do that? Why can't everyone else have such easy offense? Or you look at a Tyrese Halliburton, who is consistently surrounded by 5-out spacing, a center who shoots, and you're seeing him get to the rim, and you're like, why can't RJ and Scottie get such clean looks at the rim? They must be bums. But it's actually not that. It's not that easy. So watching the Minnesota game and watching the Minnesota Timberwolves struggle, you notice something. Is that teams sag into the gaps when you put non-shooters on the court. What is the gap? A gap is the space between two players. So imagine that we have the court, and you have Scottie Barnes coming up, and you got Gradey popping up on the left corner. You got Ochai on the right corner. You got Davion kind of like in the dunker spot almost. And then he comes up and sets a screen on Scottie's man, and Scottie's going to go downhill. Well, guess what? Now Jakob is in the paint. Davion is above the break, and 3 defenders can basically collapse on 2, which is Scottie, and they can plug up all his passing lane to the one guy that they want him to not pass to, which is Jakob Poeltl. So what's going to happen is 3 guys have a very simple decision. The minute you change one variable, which is you turn Davion into Immanuel Quickley, that decision, that 3-man action is no longer easy. It's actually very difficult now because now 3 defenders have to guard 3 moving offensive players, and they're very likely going to make a mistake. Now, if you have a hyper processor like a Scottie Barnes or an evolving playmaker like an RJ Barrett, you're going to find much easier advantages. But when a team can simply ignore one player and just basically sink in the gaps, that's what Anthony Edwards is going through. Every time he drives, he has to drive away from Jaden McDaniels, man, because Jaden McDaniels, man, is sinking 7-8 feet off of Jaden McDaniels in the corner and is happy to leave Jaden McDaniels to shoot threes all he wants. Rudy Gobert's man does not care if Rudy Gobert gets the basketball. They want you to run your offense to Rudy Gobert. It will be horrible. Team's not going to win that way. So this is the problem with some of your less optimal pieces, is they are very much in the way. And it's a little bit frustrating, maybe I'm being a little impatient, because I realize where this is going, and it's going somewhere very good. But right now, it's very bad because you have an offense that constantly requires advantage, situation, movement, advantage registration, quick decision making. Case in point, let's say Scottie Barnes collapses 3 defenders and finds Ochai in the corner for an open 3. Now, Ochai's open, he must take the shot. If he does not take the shot, if he decides to jab step and tries to now drive into the paint, the entire offense is broken, completely broken. Let's say Scottie Barnes decides to pass out to Chris Boucher, and Chris Boucher decides, I'm not going to do the right thing here, which is I'm not going to pass to the next guy because the defender rotated and there's an open shooter at the top. No, instead, I'm going to drive into a packed paint and float the basketball, fall out of bounds, and then give up transition the other way. The other thing you realize is that turnovers and really just generally bad offense leads to horrible defense and bad defensive outcomes. I noticed this by watching a lot of the Lakers and the Denver Nuggets, 2 teams that never get back in transition and are very limited defensively. Now, I don't think the Raptors are necessarily limited defensively. They have a lot of defensive liabilities like specifically RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett is the biggest defensive liability for the Raptors at this point. But Gradey is also no one's definition of a great defender. Ochai is not a great defender. Scottie gave a blow by to Elfrid Payton today. Jakob Poeltl is not a great defender. Davion is not a great defender. No matter what you want to tell yourself, he's not a great defender. There are no great defenders on this team. The closest thing you have to a great defender is probably Jonathan Mobo and Scottie Barnes. But honestly, they're not Rudy Gobert. And neither one of them, frankly, defensively, are Evan Mobley. And just to be clear, I think Scottie's a great defender. His versatility is something else, right? But the versatility only unlocks when you make him versatile, right? And in that situation, it doesn't matter that you're versatile. It just matters can you function in your role. And the Cavaliers have Evan Mobley in a great role. So I'm saying if you need to get much better defensively if you're going to play non-offensive players that are constantly going to turn the basketball over and then miss jump shots, miss layups at the rim, fall out of bounds, and then give up transition. Transition offense is the most efficient. Well, it's the most efficient form of offense for an opposing team. I'll tell you 2 things. Number 1, offense off of second chance points. So offensive rebound, defenses and scramble. Half the team doesn't even realize that the possession has switched. And that's when, if you're a rebounder, if your best offensive rebounder is also a good passer, i.e. Jokic, i.e. Scottie, guys like this, then you're going to find the advantage on the court immediately, right? And of course, in transition. Teams score so much more efficiently in transition. Early offense is much better. Delayed offense is much better for the defensive team because they have now time to gather and step. So when you have players who are not talented, it makes the defender's job easy because you don't have to second guess it. If I know that Davion Mitchell can't shoot and I know that Jakob Poeltl can't shoot, they're not hard to guard. They're not hard to guard. And that's where I draw the line of people starting to compare Jakob Poeltl to Shaquille O'Neal and all that stuff, like saying he's a top 5 center. No, you cannot be a top 5 center and be a poor defender and also be like a spacing limitation. You just can't. And so that's where, you have to kind of take the broader perspective on this and say, well, what pieces really fit in going forward? And how many of them do we have? We have a lot. We have a lot of pieces that fit in for the future. I think Ulrich fits in for the future. He's a big who can space the floor, has shown shooting upside, has shown great rim protection. This is exactly the archetype of player you need. I think Jonathan Mobo fits in beautifully into the future. Again, a switchable wing who can play a little bit of big and has great pass, read, react, situational awareness, great advantage generation, advantage identification. He has now shown some shooting potential. Gradey, Ochai, right? Ochai is developing a little bit as a passer. I really like it. The defense is coming along. The shooting has been really good throughout most of the year. Touch wood, right? Jacoby, Jameson Battle. You got a lot of pieces here that really fit for the future. You got Immanuel Quickley. I would argue 10 out of your 17 roster spots are pretty much set. You got 7 to go, 8 to go. You got 8 to go. And what do you do with the rest of these guys, though? What do you do with everyone who doesn't quite fit in? Do you just throw them to the curb? Do you throw them to the side? Do you throw them to the wolves? Do you throw them under the bus? Do you malign them endlessly? Like, do you come out in the media and just say, this is not a part of our future? Do you do what Nick Nurse said, about Gary Trent Jr.? If he does this, then he fits us. And if he doesn't do this, then he doesn't fit us, right? Darko Rajakovic called out Ochai Agbaji, and it was the biggest sign ever that Ochai Agbaji is actually a part of the core and a part of the future. Because if they were trying to trade him, he would never have called out Ochai Agbaji. Darko is too smart for that. So you can pretty much rest assured that Ochai is here to stay for a while. People ask why he didn't call out Davion. Why doesn't he bench RJ for his defensive issues? Why doesn't he bench Chris Boucher when he takes 7 shots like a crazy person and doesn't get back on defense and doesn't rotate properly and makes generally poor decisions in the transition? Why doesn't he bench these players? Because right now the Raptors are in a transition phase of rehabbing assets. That's really what it is. They're trying to rehab assets. And if they accidentally discover that RJ Barrett can be part of the core, or that Bruce Brown can be part of the core, or, like the team going forward, I'm sure they'll explore it. They're not closed off to change. I'm sure they're willing to accept that, okay, if RJ can defend and RJ evolves as a shooter and a playmaker, yes, there's really no reason to move off of him at all. But if he cannot defend and he cannot shoot and he doesn't contribute enough on that end, and he's always going to be a bit of a liability when it comes to, finishing against like bigger defenders and set defenses in the playoffs, if you can really scheme for him, put a better defender on him, then yeah, maybe that's something you don't want to, that's not something you want to park into long term, because there is always going to be a deficiency there. Now, I am very impressed with RJ Barrett this year. His playmaking has been incredible. I think that is a huge credit to Darko Rajakovic. I really do. I think the last 5 minutes of this just can be spent just really appreciating what Darko's doing. Okay. Getting Jonathan Mobo out of a base instinct that is pretty much ingrained in him, which is run to the rim, post up, run to the rim, post up. He's been doing it for 4 years. 4 or 5 years, Jonathan Mobo has been on select teams and JUCO teams and college teams that have basically asked him to run to the rim to try and drive the basketball. And now you have a coach who is asking you to pop to the corner and pop up above the break, trail the play, and shoot threes. And you must break that. And you saw Jonathan Mobo did not get minutes. The media didn't make a big deal out of it. He absolutely called out Jonathan Mobo. And Jonathan Mobo has played brilliantly since then. He's been consistently good. 3 games in a row, he's been good. Every time you call on him, whether you play him 20 minutes, 10 minutes, he's good. Energy right away. Ochai Agbaji. There's this YouTube channel. I cannot stand him. I've blasted him endlessly. I really can't. I just the worst. Okay, I want to dignify that dude by giving him a shout out because he doesn't deserve one. Coming out after like, oh, why is Scottie Barnes body language this? Why is Scottie Barnes not getting back on defense? It's like, my God, he just didn't even understand the play. And then he talked about how Darko is calling out Ochai and it's unacceptable. It's like, bro, you so dumb. You've never played organized sports. I'll tell you something. This is something I learned listening to a lot of players talk. But one thing that most recently Donovan Mitchell talked about. Donovan Mitchell said he told Kenny Atkinson, his coach, don't tell me nothing positive. I don't want to hear I'm good, I'm great. I don't want to hear that shit. Tell me when I'm fucking up. Tell me when I'm not meeting your expectations. That's all I want to hear. That's who I am. That's how I'm wired. You know what? As someone who's wired the same way, I'm the same way. Don't tell me how good I am. Don't tell me. I want to hear what I'm doing wrong so I can fix it. I want to hear what I'm doing wrong so that I can get better. I'm not trying to hear how great I am. I hate it. I really genuinely do. Unless I'm having the worst day and it's like a bit of a pause from the shit and I'm like, oh, that's nice. But for the most part, some of my best friends are the people that told me the truth when no one else had the courage to. They're like, Rob, you were out of pocket there. You were wrong there. You shouldn't have done that. Shout outs to people in this community who sometimes when I crash out on a caller or like on a live or I have a really bad moment where I do something that's really out of pocket, y'all will message me and say, Rob, that was too far. You went too far there. And to anyone who has messaged me like that, if you've done it constructively, you've never heard anything but thank you so much from me, because that's what you want. Ochai Agbaji cares a lot about his craft. Darko Rajakovic must know him well enough and have a good enough relationship with him to know what is going to move him towards positive results, because he's really helped him so far. And that relationship, which Ochai Agbaji spoke about and said, that was such a huge vote of confidence for me because he trusts me and believes in me that he's willing to call me out like that. And he said, we left the conversation in a great place. Now, you haven't had a private conversation with Darko Rajakovic, but I know a lot of people who've had private conversations with Darko Rajakovic, including a couple of my friends. And I'll tell you one thing. This dude will never let you leave down. Ever. He could be telling you about the worst shit you've ever done, but he's going to make sure that you leave that conversation in an inspired and good place. Always. He's going to tell you every problem that he has with what you're doing, honestly. And then right at the end, he's going to give you exactly what you need to do to fix it. And he's going to give you a pat on the back and say, I believe in you. Now go do something about it. Okay? That is a great coach. That is a great coach. That is a player coach. That's a coach who gets the best out of his players. Jamison Battle, he's been working like shit with him. Are you seeing the development in this guy? He is so good. He has been so good. Tonight notwithstanding, all year, Jamison Battle has been so much better than an undrafted rookie in a terrible draft class. What about Scottie Barnes? Breaking out of this instinct of being passive and timid and, going away from your offense when things are not going right. I think we were all curious to see after that Detroit game when he came out launching threes, what was tonight going to feel like? And I think that if you're one of those people who is a bit of a Scottie detractor, if you're a Scottie hater, you hate everything he does. You hate the 31 points, 41 points. You'll hate him if he scores 80 if they don't win. You are not who I'm talking to. I'm talking about people who have legitimate, balanced, sane concerns about Scottie. Okay? Real, legitimate concerns. Does he occasionally feel a little inconsistent? Can you count on him? Can you count on him the way you could count on Shaquille O'Neal or Kobe Bryant? That is important. I need to be able to count on my franchise player to make an impact every night. Even when your shot's not falling, I need you to make an impact. I need you to be there. I can't have you having a 7-point, 9 rebound, 2 assist game. That is unacceptable. That cannot fly. Even on your worst night, Shaquille O'Neal's worst night was like 16 points, 14 rebounds, like 5 blocks. Like that's what he did on a terrible night. That's like the night he wants to burn the box score. That's what superstars do. They average out to 30, but on their worst nights, they still give you 18. They still give you 17. And it's not about the numbers. I don't give a shit about the numbers. It's about the impact. Are you there? Are you present? Or are you just kind of walking around? Are you just setting screens and kind of just waiting? No, Scottie was assertive tonight. He was playmaking. He was attacking. He rebounded the shit out of the basketball. He was playmaking for others. His imprint was all over this game. You know what you realize? and this is not a superstar trait. This is actually a great all-time great trait. The greatest 10 players, I want to say actually the greatest 7 to 8 players of all time. I don't know if there are 10, but the 7 to 8 greatest players, do you know what unites them all? Magic, Larry, I was going to say Magic, Larry, Scottie. Holy shit. Magic, Larry, LeBron, Jordan. Let's throw in Kareem in there. Let's throw in a Bill Russell. Okay. We're talking the greats of the greats. Okay. The very, very greatest of all time. And no, I'm not going to include Hakeem Olajuwon in that group. But those 6 specifically, and you could probably throw Nikola Jokic in there somewhere as well. Do you know what they have in common? They absolutely dictate the pace of the game for both teams. That's the point. Their imprint and expression on the game, their impression on the game is so large. Their presence looms so large. They dictate the calls, they dictate the flow, they dictate tempo, they dictate shot diet, they dictate philosophy. That's superstardom. Someone asked me to describe superstardom the other day. That's like legit superstardom. And Scottie does that like once every 5 games. He gives you a taste of like Magic Johnson, like impact, you know, like every 5-6 games, he'll give you like one of those games where it's like, or maybe like every quarter, every 18th quarter, 19th quarter, he'll have like that moment where you're like, ooh, if he could do that more consistently, you really do have one of the 5 best players in the NBA. If he makes his shots tonight, he got a 40 game. He got a 40 ball, right? He got a 40 piece. He didn't make his shots, so he got 18 points or 17 points. Do I care? No. I care that my 23-year-old superstar went out on the road and pushed his team to victory and dictated the terms. He wanted the ball. He wanted the shots. He wanted the usage. His usage is going to be like north of like 36% tonight. That's superstar shit. I want every game this year to be Scottie 30% usage or above. That is the positive progression. That is the player that Sam Vecini said he never would be. That is the player the draft prognosticators said he never could be. If you told one of his draft detractors that he would one day make 7 threes in a game and take 15, they would have told you crazy. If you ever told him that he would take 12 threes in a week, they'd be like, man, that must be a really rough week. He must have taken a lot of half-court heaves. No, he's willfully taking threes. And the Raptors tonight took a lot of threes. I believe they took 51 threes, 52 threes tonight. This is a recipe for success against a team like this. You don't need to burn yourself out when they have a rim protector and no perimeter defense and everyone is missing the corners. This was a perfect game plan to beat this team. Frankly, you could have tried as hard as you wanted. It was going to be hard to lose to this team. And no, it's not something to get super like hype about and say, oh my God, I guess it's us and, you know, the Boston Celtics in the finals, you know, in the Eastern Conference Finals. I guess we're that good. No, it's not. We don't need to go to the hysterics and the, you know, hyperboles of it. But what you need to do is appreciate that the process is ahead of schedule. The process is very good. The process is producing results. And yes, sometimes the process is going to mean Jacoby has 2 points and 4 rebounds and 3 assists. But that's a part of the growth curve. You know, it's going to mean that sometimes Scottie's going to shoot 2 for 12 from 3, or RJ is going to have 6 turnovers. You know what? RJ is not a natural point guard or a natural playmaker. So his turnovers are the least of my issues right now. He's a little bit limited sometimes, but man, he's been trying. He's making better reads from last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. He's progressed as a playmaker. Congratulations, Raptors. You rehabbed a toxic asset and you have turned him into a neutral asset. Can you possibly turn him into a positive asset? Holy. If you could turn RJ Barrett into a positive asset, well, now you cooked. Now you're great because now you have optionality. That's the whole thing. Everything you own, you know, if you think about, you know, teams owning contracts, the players attached to those contracts are owned by those contracts. By virtue of that, you have a vested interest as an organization to make sure that your players are well represented, well portrayed, put in positions to succeed, and well developed. It's your incentive to do that. It is in our incentive that Chris Boucher becomes a better player because at some point, if he becomes a better player, he becomes a better asset. It's in our vested interest that Jamal Shed actually becomes a great backup point guard because at some point, he might be a trade piece somewhere. He might be the final piece of a trade. Maybe maybe, right? You get to the draft next year. It's 2025 draft. And you're sitting there and Colin Murray Boyles is falling down the board. And you already picked your guy, but you're like, man, I really want Colin Murray Boyles. And you call up Phoenix, or maybe not Phoenix. They're not going to have a draft pick. You call up whatever team has the 19th pick. And you're like, yo, we really, really want the 19th pick. And they say, okay, give us Jamison Battle. That's who we want off your roster. Or, you know what? Like, give us Jamal Shed and a future 2 seconds. We'll do it. Well, you know why you can do that? Is because Jamal Shed got better. That's the asset management of this. You have a vested interest that all your players get better, that your organization gets better. And I think tonight was a very, very positive step in the right direction. You know how addictive winning is? When you get a win like this, you want to do it every night. You're like, yes, no stress in the fourth quarter, third quarter, just blew them out wire to wire. It's a beautiful thing. You blew out an NBA team. Are they a good NBA team? No. They're terrible. Were they healthy? No. But you got your first road win. You don't have to be the only winless road team in the NBA. It must feel nice. You know, New Orleans is a hell of a place. It is a hell of a place. It is a hell of a place. And you know who's from New Orleans on this team. So they are going to have a beautiful night tonight. If you're a fan of this team, you just got to be happy for this team sometimes, you know? That's just love, I guess. Just being happy for someone. Even if you're pro tank, even if you're like, Cooper Flag, you just told us about how great Cooper Flag is. He's going to change the whole league, and now we got to fucking win. You just got to love this team, man. And I'm going to tell you this, right? Garrett Temple, that's his neck of the woods, right? This is American Thanksgiving tomorrow. So tonight, I guess. And most of the players on the team are American, with the exception of Chris Boucher and Yak, I guess, and RJ Barrett. But for the most part, like, this is Thanksgiving for a lot of these people, right? So now you get to go home to your families, you get to talk to your family, and it's like, you feel good. You're coming off a big victory. Your family knows that because they're keeping up with these guys. You don't think Scottie's mom checks out every one of his games. You don't think, it's like, you feel proud, right? Like, you feel good. You walk into like a situation like this, you feel good. Now, I remember this story with Andrea Bargnani long time ago. And he was feeling really homesick and all that stuff. And they really just, I think his mom visited. I remember this. I'm missing the story now. I remember it. I heard it like from a source that was very close to the situation. And his mom had come for the holidays, and he balled out. He balled out for like those 2 weeks. Like, it was crazy. And it was just like, he was feeling good, like he was feeling good. It was like everything's reciprocating. I mean, you think about it in your own life, it's the same way, right? Like momentum. Yesterday, I had the worst day ever. We tried for 6 hours to record that draft live. I spent my birthday trying to bang my head against the wall, wondering why the shit wasn't working. Midway through the live, my audio just went out for no reason whatsoever. I could not understand it. I thought YouTube had flagged our video for monetization or copyright. Nope. Went, checked, monetization was still on. I do not understand what happened. I'll never understand it. And then John D's internet is lagging. He's not even in the country, so it's not even Rogers. It's some bullshit other internet. He had to drive home from his grandma's house to his house. We had to re-record the whole goddamn thing. Then I'm up at 1 a.m. and I'm editing the fucking thing. And I got 3 different John D's in 3 different outfits with 3 different backgrounds. And I'm like, how the hell am I going to, merge all this together? I slept at 4 a.m. At 8 a.m., I woke up construction. 8 a.m. construction. I'm still trying to slice together the last bits of the video. I'm like, bro, this is like the worst birthday ever. Thank you to this community. Y'all made it amazing. But like, other than this community, holy crap, yesterday was a shit day. It really, I mean, I'm just being honest. It wasn't great. And I got to release this video. I said to the community, if they got that last video to 300 likes, this live is coming. And now I get frozen out at Cooper Flag. People are going to hate me for this, but I didn't do it on purpose. So I worked all night. I did that, posted it finally. Okay. Scheduled it for 3 p.m. Glad that some of y'all got to watch it. Those of you who missed it live, the most part, we edited it up, made it a little bit nicer. And then I'm getting on the panel, and guess what happens? The next door neighbors decide, we're going to run construction so loud that your feet are going to shake for the next 3 hours through the panel. I had to literally put myself on mute 85, I want to say 150 times when I was on the panel today. And it was so easy to get frustrated. And then I remember thinking to myself, most people would have quit by now. Most people would have quit by now. That's when I realized, I'm like, man, most people would have quit on this. If the video just blanked out like that, how easy would it have been for me to just be like, sorry guys, the video fucked up at Cooper Flag. Here are my thoughts on Cooper Flag. Here's the video with all the issues. Sure. But no, that's not okay, because that's not what I fucking promised to do. Stick-to-itiveness. I messaged the panel staff, like the PC staff, at 11 a.m. before we got onto the panel, 5 minutes before, and I said, listen, they just started construction. Please don't call on me if I'm muted. And I had to tell you, I went to my balcony to see if I could set up there. I could still hear it. I went to the hallway, still hear it. I went to our bedroom, could still hear it. I could not get away from this noise. I literally went to another floor in my building and I could still hear it. They were shaking the whole building. So I'm like, what do I do? And I thought to myself, I really, at like 11:15, and I still wasn't on the panel. It was 15 minutes into the show. And I thought to myself, I should probably just message them and say, I can't come today. And then I realized that every 5 minutes for about 1.5 minutes, they stop. And so I thought to myself, okay, I'll just speak in those 1.5 minutes. I'll work around this and maybe they'll stop for lunch. So I came on the panel and I had myself on mute and it was super frustrating. Stick-to-itiveness, still did it. How did I turn this into a 10-minute segment about myself? I think what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't matter where you start. It matters where you finish. That's a message to the fourth quarter gang and everyone who's trying to end their year strong. It's really important to finish strong. And it's really important to stick to things. And it's really important to fulfill your promises. And it's really important that when you say you're going to do something, that you actually do it. I've broken 1 million promises to myself throughout my life. I say I'm going to do this, I don't. I say I'm going to go to the gym, I don't do it. And every single time I do one of those things, I break trust with myself. Trust is the fundamental building block of a good life. Trust with yourself, trust with your family, trust with your spouse, trust with your kids. This is the building block. And it's also the building block of a great team. Trust is important. I have to trust, if I'm Ochai Agbaji, that Darko Rajakovic is telling me something that he knows to be true and that I know to be true. You know, it's very difficult to hear your coach called you out and now you're the subject, you know, especially with this toxic ass media who spin everything out into control. And, you know, Ochai was going through a horrible stretch. He was shooting like 32% from three after shooting 48% from three, 47% from three. And he, you know, his scoring was down from like 13 to 7. And he has this terrible game. And his coach is like, he needs to be better. 0 rebounds is unacceptable. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you don't have a good relationship with that guy, you've lost him. It's over. He's never going to play right for you again. He's going to sulk. You're going to break his confidence. That's not what happened. Because that's trust. Because Ochai knows that if Darko is saying that, it must be true. And he also took it a different way because Darko had that conversation with him before he had that with the media. It's so different from Nick Nurse saying, if he fits us, he doesn't fit us. Because I'll tell you something that I know for a fact. Gary did not know Nick Nurse was going to say that before Nick Nurse said that to the media. It's different than when, you know, Fred VanVleet says, our younger guys and our young teammates and we're inexperienced, because he doesn't have those conversations. Positive communication with your teammates, with your coaching staff. You know, I've often pointed to guys like Mark Daignault in OKC, how he kept Chet engaged and motivated, meeting with him every single week, you know, having this one-on-one with him because they knew how important he was to keep him engaged through his rehab when he rehabbed from that Liz Frank injury. So important. The relationships within your organization. Do you see how happy Immanuel Quickley was for Jamison Battle? Do you see how happy Davion Mitchell was for Jacoby Walter? Do you see how happy Scottie was when Jonathan Mobo got that breakaway dunk? And he was almost like talking shit about him because he was like, that wasn't a very nice dunk. And I'm going to probably talk shit about him later because that relationship is so beautiful. The relationships on this team are awesome. This team is a really fun watch. Enjoy the losses, the wins. It's going somewhere great. It's going somewhere really great. I have seen a lot of good organizations, a lot of good teams at the groundwork of something special. This reminds me a lot of OKC, a lot of OKC. And you may not equate a 1-to-1. There's no Chet on this team. Maybe you don't think Scottie's Shea, etc. But in terms of the culture and the camaraderie and the teammanship, like all that stuff that they're building, I'm pretty sure teammanship is not a word. We just invented it. It's very OKC-like. The culture, that sort of like band of brothers culture of like everything stays in this locker room. It doesn't go out of this locker room. When's the last time you heard a leak? When's the last time you heard, this guy doesn't like this guy's disgruntled with his minutes, this guy might not be. No, there's nothing. It's all positive. It's all encouragement. It's all great, man. And tonight you get this big victory on the road. Next up, you got back-to-back against Miami. There's your test. Miami sputtering a little bit, lost, I think, last night against the Giannis-less Bucks. So Miami is in desperation mode a little bit, and they're going to have, revenge on their mind, and obviously they want to save their season. So you have, next up, you do have Miami. Hold on, let me just make this a little bit bigger so I can see it. Sorry, just get some super chats out of the way. Jacoby coming for RJ's spot. I don't think it's necessarily that serious. And Battle replaced Jonte Porter smoothly, and Jacoby, aka Silk the Shocker. That is a very interesting observation. I never thought about the one-to-one swap there between Battle and Jonte. I honestly would love to have them both. I thought Jonte was great. Anyways, this is the schedule for the Toronto Raptors, who are now, after tonight, 5-14. Heading into Friday, they have Friday, Sunday, Miami, and Miami. So at Miami, and then they come home. Basically, might as well share the plane back with the Miami Heat, because then Miami, Indiana, OKC, Dallas, New York, Brooklyn, Houston is probably the longest homestand of the year for the Raptors. And very likely at Miami is when you're going to get Bruce Brown back. So going forward, this team might actually be turning a corner. And again, as much as the math on 5-14 sounds really bad, right? We got a caller, Emo. What's up?
Yo, Pen.
What's up?
I was watching tonight's game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And basically, like, RJ Barrett is obviously, like, he's not the best, but he's our guy, and he has been balling out. His assist, I don't know if his assist numbers correlate, but has he not been like a better passer throughout this year?
Better passer than what? Better passer than he
Than
used
last
to be?
year. Than last year, yeah.
Yeah, I think he was a really good passer last year as well. I think he's making
He was, for sure.
higher.
For us.
He's taking on a higher load of playmaking this year. That's what I'll say. Like, so last year he had this game where he had, I think, 7 or 8 assists, and I was like, oh damn, like there was actually an advanced read in there. So I just hadn't seen a lot of advanced reads from RJ
I get
in
that.
college
Yeah,
or
you
New
see
York.
you see the 14 assists, 15 assists, and then it's like, how much of those assists are substance? It's just like how much of those are just throughout the game. I get what you're saying.
Sure, yeah, but he has been much better. I think his playmaking has been his most
For sure.
improved.
And I'm not gonna lie, the main reason I'm calling in is because I have a very serious question about Jameson Battle.
Sure.
Is his defense a problem? That's my question, honestly.
No.
Because his shooting is lights out, and it's needed. It's needed for this team.
Okay.
Like his shooting is.
What are you seeing in his defense that would give you the thought that it's a problem?
I'm not gonna lie. It's probably just stigma, Like I just know a shooter is just they can't like I don't know. It's like an MPJ effect. Like I feel like he's like a alright defender, but you know.
I think he's had a lot of really positive possessions on defense. He reads the court extremely well. He's very disciplined. He's large, so that in itself helps him because he's 6'7", 6'8", 6'8". He's almost 6'8".
Yep.
So, he's got a pretty decent wingspan. I would say I would estimate it's around 6'9", 6'10" wingspan. So he's got some size to him. He's got great positional versatility. He's got good strength. I think he can guard some 4s and some 3s. So that's why I say great positional versatility.
Honestly,
He's
you
not
know what it
Scottie, but
is?
what is
Yeah,
it?
I watch most like I watch our games like at the beginning, and then when I see like us being blown out, I'm like, okay, like this is enough for my mental. I'm gonna shut this off right now and just come back to the highlights. Then I watch the highlights and I see like how the game went. Like I make sure to stay off social media, stay off Instagram and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
so basically
Absolutely.
that's why I'm not gonna lie. I am a box score watcher. I'm a thing. Yeah,
Right. But like, do you box score
probably.
watch for like a particular reason? Like because you don't want to watch the games, or because you do fantasy basketball or sports gambling? Like
No, it's not
what's
even
the
fantasy.
reason?
If it's not even fantasy, it's literally just for my enjoyment because I can't sit down for what's the it's like the games are slated for like 6 hours a day,
What do you mean 6 hours a day?
probably like not even 6 hours,
You talking about
like
all NBA games
yeah,
together?
yeah.
Oh, sure. Sure,
That's what
sure,
I'm
sure.
saying. Yeah, like it's a good like 6, 7, 8 hours even sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't do that right now. So I'm just out here watching. I watch what I can, and then I turn on the highlights and I see what I can. But I'm not gonna lie. That's why I bring these questions up. I'm just asking because Jameson Battle looks really really fucking good. He looks really good in the thing, the highlights.
And the box score.
Yep,
Right. Well, the game in itself, he looks even better. So his
that's great.
awareness on like when to cut, where to be, how to space, how to move, like
Yep,
is just very good. His positional awareness defensively is also very good. Like he gets himself into the spot like in the right time. You know what I mean?
yep.
So like that's to me like the major upside with him is you generally like when you think good defender, you think like pressure defenders, big shot blockers,
Sure.
great
I watch enough.
steals
I
guys.
watch enough of the panel. I know about Davion Mitchell and his. But trust me, I know.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, but when people think great defenders, they often think like super athletes, right?
Super
They think
pressure, like 94 feet. Like I'm right here with you.
that,
Yep,
or like guys who rack up a lot of blocks or steals.
for
But
sure.
there
Yeah,
are
box
defenders
score,
like Klay
box score.
Thompson. Like Klay Thompson wasn't a big blocks guy. He just positionally he guarded his spot well. He moved
For
his feet
sure.
laterally well. I think Jameson Battle has like really invested in his training. Like this offseason, like he's been great. He's been going at it hard like a demon, and he's not going to waste
Since
this
summer league,
opportunity.
he's been
Summer
hooping. Yep,
league with his trainer. His trainer
yep,
is freaking awesome,
yep.
and they have put in so much work into rebuilding his body for the NBA. And honestly, I checked out a lot of his Ohio State stuff, and I don't see this like this level of upside. I'm like watching it. I'm like I'm trying to see if I can project the type of player he's going to be. I don't see like a guy who can come out and do what he's doing this year. I see an
For sure.
NBA player, but I don't see like maybe a fringe NBA player. I don't
I
see this.
I can see. I'm leveling with you for the Jameson battle stuff. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm with you right
yeah,
here.
absolutely.
For the last question,
Mhm.
Ochai Agbaji.
What about him?
How's like his like he's been, I don't know, like from what I see, like his offense is like, he makes some very good like contested layups always. Like that's one thing I noticed about him. I don't know if you noticed it, but he's very good at finishing on people.
He's been mixed bag. So last year he wasn't good. Then
Mhm.
he was good for about 12 games. And then the last 6 games he's been terrible.
For
And
sure.
tonight he was good again. So
See,
it's weird.
I
Like,
didn't even fully see that. You know,
yeah, like so I think that it's important with him to, not let one part of his game tank every part of his game.
for
Because I
sure.
don't mind if he goes 0 for 4 from the field.
Play
I
good
don't care
defense, you're
if he
good.
goes
Mhm.
exactly play defense, rebound, control what you can control, be active. See, the issue that I had, and I have not called out Ochai once this year until last game. That was
Mhm.
the first game where I said, okay, Ochai was fucking
Real
terrible tonight.
Canadian, by the way.
No free promo, no free promo.
Hey, I'm just saying, we're some Canadians out here.
Oh, okay, cool. But that's a brand. Okay. Unless
Yeah,
real,
that's all I'm saying. I'm sorry.
unless real Canadian. Now I gotta go clip that, bro.
You're good, man.
Bullshit.
Just talk Ojai, fam. Talk Ojai.
Okay,
You're good.
so Ochai Abaji, like if he's gonna be like a consistent NBA rotation player, he's got to bring some level of consistency to his performances. Shooting can't be it because you're not a star. So if you're a role player in the NBA, we need you to cut with mercilessly. We need you to run up and down the court like a demon. We need you to guard 94 feet. We need you to be active.
sure.
We need your hands to be active.
That's,
we need you to do a
what
lot of
I
that
need.
stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I need that at Ochai, for sure.
Absolutely. And we also need, you to continue doing some of the stuff that you do at the rim, because Ochai's great gift as a guard defender is that he can rebound a little bit and he can block shots, as he blocked that shot that started that RJ Barrett to Scottie Barnes fast break. So I think that it's very, very important for him to keep those parts of his game consistent, even though he's going through a bit of a shooting slump.
Jeremy Sohan last year, playing point guard for the Spurs, right? It's like, obviously you're not the point guard, right? You're not a point guard for the future. We're trying to develop these skills for you so you can thrive in these situations when you are put in these situations.
Sure, I think it's a creative way to play with a handicap, right?
Mhm.
Like if you're going to put a non-point guard at point guard position, your offense is going to be very disorganized, and it's good for him to have those reps at point guard, because now he's more of a point
player,
forward.
but not for the team, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, man, thanks a lot for calling in. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers. Okay. All right. I got to read some of these comments that I starred. Deshane Waves, still on this. He's an all-star. Rob doesn't think so. Do you think RJ ever gets an all-star appearance? And HZ saying, emo sounds Somali. He's not a gambler. Yo, that's funny. Okay. No. I don't know ever, but not this year. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of them are numbers. One of them are wins. So I think when people look at numbers like box scores, right? Or even highlights, I think it's very easy to trick your eyes into seeing like Anthony Edwards when you're looking at RJ Barrett. But I think it's also important to realize that the limitations are very real. The superstars do not have their window shrunk the way that he does. That if you're going to be a one-way type of offensive player, like I think what you're getting right now is like the best version of RJ. Like I think it's fantastic. He's in year 6 right now. Can he get marginally better? Yes. But it's the same equation as DeMar DeRozan. There's a physical limit when you don't have burst. Like he has good enough burst, but it's not like the type of elite quick first step that you would need. And then there's size issues. There's wingspan issues. Like there's, generally speaking, court processing issues. So at some point, he's going to have to become better at all of those things, marginally, maybe 5% better at one, 5% better at one. The good news and the bad news. Bad news is it's very hard to do. The good news is he's doing it. He's doing it anyway. If you told me that he'd get to this level of being a playmaker off the drive, because it's basically like how he playmakes, right? Like he's basically playmaking out of that driving situation. Okay, we got Layne. Layne, what up, man? What's up?
Yo, OH.
IO, what's up?
How about Battle, man?
He was great.
I'm telling you, the potential is there. It's completely there for him to be. I mean, man, let's overreact a little bit. Could he be your 7th or 8th man on a championship team? Maybe.
I think for now, I'm more comfortable saying he could be a rotation player on a championship team, and I was already there before this game. But yeah, he's a valuable, very valuable piece.
I am so ecstatic. I'm so ecstatic that I don't look like an idiot, because I remember hopping on here after Summer League, when you were doing Summer League post games, and saying if he makes the team, he's gonna legit have a shot to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just happy I don't look like an idiot. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
You have a dog?
No, I'm dog sitting. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. No, I heard that patter, patter, patter. I'm like, wait, my dog is not moving. That's funny.
No, I'm so sorry.
No, it's cool. Okay, so yeah, so overall, I think he's fantastic. I think this game was just a beautiful revelation. Like both your rookies balled out. Like, well, you have 4 rookies, and they all played well, but 2 of them played incredible games.
Yep.
And just this really young team. And like a lot of people last year, like I was really high on Jordan Hawkins. I was really high on Yves Missi, right? Pre-draft, I was super high on both those guys. watching the Raptors rookies really outplay those two guys was really encouraging. Really awesome to see. The Pelicans are a mess. You know, they're a real mess. And I think there's something that needs to be said about you take on the identity of your best player. Seeing what's happening in Philly, seeing what's happening in New Orleans, very similar situations. Injury prone, big superstar types. I think a lot of people would probably say that those guys are a lot more talented or NBA ready or big bucket getters. I think a lot of those people would say those guys are more naturally talented than Scottie Barnes. But what is their focus? Are they focused on winning championships? Is Joel Embiid focused on winning championships? He can say he's focused on winning championships, but is he focused on winning championships? Zion can say all the right shit on media day. Is he focused on winning a championship? How are these guys showing up out of shape? Right? So that's my question. Is like, when your star player is unserious about winning, how do you ever win? And have you ever seen a team where the star player was unserious about winning and that team won a championship?
Or just not a role model, you know? Like, sometimes people confuse leadership as getting in people's faces, you know, commanding, you know, strong, being the guy at the front of the pack.
You're cutting out.
That's
really
not what
bad.
leadership is all the time. Sometimes leadership is just leading by example.
You're cutting out really badly.
Am I? Shoot. Hold
Yeah.
on.
Are you on stolen Wi-Fi? Are you committing a crime? My point is largely that I think Scottie is the type of player that you would want to build your culture after, because especially when he goes out night after night and plays the way he has since he's come back from the injury, right? I think he's really on the path right now to, I mean, what are the Raptors with since Scottie's return? They're 2-1, right? So
Hello. We better now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry.
There's another caller, Marco Barreal. Can you please turn on your camera for a second? I won't put you on. I just need to see who you are. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Layne. Yeah.
You know, my bad. Sometimes, you know, people think leadership is like I said, like getting in people's faces, you know, being commanding, right? Being an alpha. Sometimes leadership is just leading by example, right? And if your best player can't lead by example, i.e. a Zion Williamson, right? i.e. a Joel Embiid, like the rest of the roster takes notice of that.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what, the rest of the roster takes notice of that. Like, I'm sure, I mean, not to sit here and like make it all about Scottie, but like when Scottie got hurt, he didn't just like sit there. Like, dude was working his ass off every single day, right? The rest of the sees that. So now you have like, I don't know. I just feel like it creates a trickle down effect. It creates a trickle down effect to the rest of your roster when your best player. I mean, because let's be honest here. Like, Scottie will talk people up, but Scottie's not going to be the type of guy where someone messes up and he's going to get in their face. Scottie's going to be the type of the guy with positive reinforcement, right? Especially on the court, it is constantly positive reinforcement.
I disagree with that completely. I think he will absolutely, you know, tell a teammate when they're fucking up in practice. He just won't do that publicly anymore.
Well, that's what I'm saying. On the court, it's constant positive reinforcement. But he's going to hold himself to the same.
Like in a practice setting, it's not.
In game.
Okay, in game, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, he's going to expect people to hold him to the same standard, and that's a great leadership, you know, attribute, right? To where someone like Joel Embiid, he hears a teammate say something negative or try to hold him to a standard, and he's going to be like, "Who the hell are you? I'm him. I'm that guy." Right? Like that report leaked. That report leaked about Tyrese Maxey for a reason, and it was to save face. I truly believe Joel Embiid's people leaked that report. It was to save face. I guarantee you, the Raptors.
What report about Tyrese Maxey?
Tyrese Maxey saying that he needs to show up, be on time.
Why would Joel Embiid's people leak that?
Because it was going to come out one way or another, and so they tried to get ahead of the curve.
I don't think they leaked that at all.
Control the narrative.
Bro, Nick Nurse leaked it. He literally walked out onto the presser and said, we just had a meeting. Like,
yeah, he leaked the meeting.
He didn't need to do that at all.
He leaked,
and some of the verbiage, Joel likes Maxey likes big fella. big fella. Dude, this is 100% Nick Nurse's verbiage. Like, they didn't even change it up. They're so stupid. Elephant in the room. There's so many little sprinkles of like who said what. You know what I mean? Like the quotes are literally from the vantage point of someone who talks exactly like Nick Nurse. If it's not Nick Nurse, it's Nick Nurse's burner account. Okay, so yeah. Anyways, I guess what I'm saying is like when you're not serious about winning, when you have other goals and agendas or whatever, it's just very difficult. If you're not coachable, it's very difficult. So I'm very happy that the Raptors are building their identity around a selfless leader who cares about winning, because that's all I've ever wanted. Honestly, I don't want to build around a guy who just cares about his next contract or his brand deals or whatever. I want to build up a culture here in Toronto where the Raptors, where it's a really fun team to watch because they share the basketball. Tonight they had 38 assists. They shared the shit out of the basketball, and Jameson Battle got open and he made shots, and Ochai made shots, and Jacoby cooked. Like, I mean, you get 38 assists largely because you made a lot of open threes, but you get those 38 assists. Those open threes are open threes because they're made off of assists. Like you're moving the basketball, and it's like it's good. Like the offense worked tonight because, frankly, the Pelicans defense is embarrassing. Like this is like they were like playing against a high school team for real. But yeah,
it's a big roster with CJ McCollum and Dejounte Murray. Which, man, what happened to Dejounte? Do you think it's just slow coming back from injury, or do you think he's kind of fallen off that much because he left the Hawks and the Hawks are doing better now without him and a worse roster?
I really like Dejounte. I've liked him for a long, long time. And shout outs to Dejounte, and shout outs to his dad, and shout outs to like everyone around him. And like he's a really good dude. He's a really good dude. But I'm gonna be honest, like he hasn't played defense in 3 years. And I was a very long time ago, like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, an advocate for the Raptors maybe trading for him. I would not trade for him today. I think his value is really in the tank right now. I don't know what's wrong. I haven't been plugged in to his side of the things for a really long time, but I'm just always going to root for that kid. But he's been pretty bad.
Yeah, it seems like a great dude. I mean, let's be honest. Like a lot of these dudes in the NBA now, like it's like professional athletes in general, just great people, overwhelming people nowadays, which is great. Awesome.
Anyways, man, any final thoughts?
Just keep it rolling. Keep rolling. Keep making shots. It's fun when we make shots.
It is fun. I was just saying, I was like, what a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Anyways, man, happy Thanksgiving to you, and take care.
Yes, sir. Happy Thanksgiving.
See ya. Marco, final caller. Marco, what's up?
Hey, Rob. Thank you so much for having me on. Long time listener. And can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your volume's a little bit low.
Okay. One thing that I wanted to talk about was I really appreciated the other night in your last live when you were talking about the number one draft pick or high lottery picks don't really matter. It's just about making sure that you pick what you wanted when it's your time to select it. And I thought that was really cool of you. I talked to a lot of my friends about the Raptors, and it's always split between tanking and not tanking. And when you think about all of the lessons learned in trying to win and the habits and the mentality of it, I think that's way more valuable than trying to tank and then getting a new kid and putting it all on him to try to change things around. Whereas the whole group as a whole right now, it's like a rising tide. A rising tide raises all ships. And I think that's just the mentality that I'm seeing that's happening with Scottie, with Darko. And it's great that there's an outlet like you that's kind of pushing that same sort of narrative along. And so just as a fan, I just want to let you know I appreciate what you're about. I appreciate what you're doing. And thank you for that.
Thanks a lot. That's a really nice thing. It's always really it's really cool to meet, because the number just keeps going up. 11,000 subscribers, 10,000 subscribers, 8,000 views, 6,000 views, whatever. But I always try to realize there's somebody on the other end of those views and on the other end of those subscriptions. And I'm always really interested to know who they are. Right. And sometimes when I meet some of our community, it's always very humbling to realize just how well thought out and how intelligent, how sensible, how emotionally stable, I don't know, mentally stable, I don't know. Because I mean, let's be real, a lot of sports fans are not all those things. A lot of sports fans are just yelling, screaming, and jumping from hot take to hot take and getting really angry. And I've met a lot of those sports fans and really didn't want to build a community based on those principles, right? So I'm really happy. And the like attracts like element of it is very true.
Just about to say that. Just about to say that. I thought it was really cool the other day when you showed us the clips of like your 2 favorite movies. And I was like, that was very courageous and bold of you from a basketball fan standpoint to share something like that, about yourself as well. That was really cool. And so, yeah, man, just the culture and everything that's being built around here, like you have me locked in. It's great. Thank you.
That's amazing. Thanks a lot for calling in, man. Appreciate you.
You too. Take care.
Cheers. Today on the panel, Ox and I were talking, well, I guess Ox and I had a discussion, Big Ox Bob, shout out to Big Ox. And we had a discussion about being safe with your takes, and we were talking about Cooper Flag, naturally. And he said, maybe it's okay to just say he's like Gerald Wallace because that's safe. And I said, no guts, no glory, right? The important thing to realize is basketball takes are not that serious. It's not war. It's not the safety of your children. It's not that serious. Being wrong about things is okay. I've often said that being successful in life requires 2 very specific things. You must be a contrarian and you must be right. So it does not help to go with the herd. Going with the herd is assured mediocrity. You have to stand out. You have to say something different. If you have an original thought, and if you have, because there's only one you, and that's a blessing, right? Like, no one has your vantage point, no one has your perspective, no one's experienced what you've experienced. And so you have to go and you have to lean into that. And hopefully, if you do that enough times over a sustained period of time, you'll build a community that's there for you. And that's the important thing. There's a lot of ways to get 20,000, 30,000, 45,000, 100,000 subscribers. Great content, like exciting, captivating content. And it's funny because, sometimes my friends will say, like, okay, this is how you can take your channel to the next level. If you can do this and you can do that. And I'm not interested. It's not because I'm not ambitious. It's because I have a very, very clear idea of exactly what I want to do. The coolest thing about this community is this community's interests intersect in so many beautiful ways. Y'all have shown up to Pendants and enjoyed art house films, just like the previous caller Marco said, like, learning together. Y'all have, like, some of you have become friends offline, which is really cool. Some of you become my friends offline, which is also really cool. So I just thought, like, when I was celebrating my birthday, and as I mentioned, my birthday was not fantastic yesterday. It was a lot of technical issues, a lot of, difficult conversations, a lot of just disappointing things. I just thought to myself how happy I was that I spent the first hour of my birthday on this live speaking with y'all, because, it was just very nice. It was really cool to spend, so much time every single year is spent in this community, having conversations, doing these lives, having these interactions, having disagreements, all those things. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for making my birthday as awesome as it was. Some of you reached out via DM. I have 100 messages on my phone that I haven't responded to. I responded to 4 calls. I have generally been an asshole about replying to people for wishing me a happy birthday. So maybe my birthday wasn't as good as it. Maybe my birthday wasn't that great because I didn't let it be great. Maybe that's a part of self-reflection that I got to accept. That maybe if I had answered, some of those texts, I would have felt better about it. But yeah, it was a weird day. But I'm really happy that I got to spend this, like, the first hour with you guys, and I'm reminded that I'm very, very blessed every single day that I get to do something that I love so much, and that I get to finally watch a team that really, really reflects my assertion of values on basketball. And I know it sounds highly selfish, but I'm being highly selfish when I say this. I have a very particular style of basketball that I'm willing to tolerate. And any basketball that deviates from that basketball drives me crazy. Okay, one-on-one isolation basketball, driving into 4 defenders as everyone watches, is not my brand of basketball. Now, I'm not moving away from Toronto, and I'm not giving up on the Raptors. So really, there was only one way to do that, which was to hope that one day the Raptors would play the style of basketball that I love. The Raptors have played a lot of different styles of basketball throughout the year. This is possibly coming up to one of the best ones ever. I think the Raptors, going back to last year, when you look at the shot tracking data, you look at the analytics on shot quality, Everything has been pointing in a really positive direction. But then you realize Immanuel Quickley out, Kelly Olynyk out, Gradey Dick out. How many threes are you missing from your lineup tonight? Think about it. Think about what I just said. How many 3-pointers a game are you missing from your lineup between Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, Immanuel Quickley, Gradey Dick? How many threes? And what do you need more than anything to create space for Scottie Barnes? 3-point shooters. You're missing all of them. You have like Ochai Abaji, Scottie Barnes. Like, you're very lucky. Jamison Battle was like a very big breath of fresh air off the bench. But hey, man, Ty Jerome just literally did this to us against Cleveland. So it's nice to have Jamison Battle basically pull a Ty Jerome on the New Orleans Pelicans. But what I'm saying is, in place of some of these guys who are out, you have opted to play non-shooters, who I love, some of them, guys like Jonathan Mobo. Ideally, Jonathan Mobo is the only non-shooter on the court with 4 shooters around him so that he can attack the paint and generally penetrate and do. But now he's playing with 2 non-shooters. Ideally, Jakob Poeltl is the only non-shooter on the court. So I'm just realizing how much this team is missing. And every night they're losing by 2, 3, 4 points. And you're just like, you're missing like 40 points, 50 points off your roster. Bruce Brown is not a bad 3-point shooter. He's shot competently before. Kelly's a great 3-point shooter. Grady's a great 3-point shooter. IQ is probably your best 3-point shooter on high volume. So, you're missing so much offensive talent, so much dynamicism. And you break down the tape, the previous game where you lost, and you just see how easy some of those decisions were for the defense. And you're like, it's not going to be that easy when Immanuel Quickley comes back. I remain at least 20% optimistic that the Raptors will still push for the play-in if they get rolling on this homestand. Obviously, go over in Miami, the math becomes a little bit more daunting. Maybe this entire thing becomes a lot harder. But I do believe tonight was a step in the right direction. And I mentioned it before. I thought Detroit and New Orleans were must-wins, and you must win one of these games against Miami. Now that you dropped the game against Detroit at the buzzer, on the Jaden Ivey buzzer, I feel like the calculus changes a little bit, and you probably need to win both. Now, it's worth noting that you have only played Philly once, and I believe Philly is on your schedule a few more times. There's also some other teams on your schedule a few more times. You have a lot of games against Charlotte, Washington, Chicago. We haven't seen Chicago yet this year. All of those teams will be tanking within a week. So there are free wins coming if you want them. Okay? There are free wins coming if you want them. So if you believe that a fully healthy version of the Toronto Raptors is deserving of a playoff exit in the first round, that is what you want to do with this year, then yes, I do believe that is possible to do. Okay? Anyways, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great night. Out of here at the almost 2-hour mark. Oops, I just Anyways, please make sure to like this video and subscribe. And to those of you who missed our draft special, I assure you it is a good listen. For the most part, it's a good listen and a very, very positive introduction to all of those young prospects that the Raptors could be looking at. And the good news for you is, regardless of whether you choose to tank or not tank, you're going to get a pretty decent player in this draft. Looking at this draft more deeply, there's like 13, 14, 15 guys that could fit in so beautifully into this rotation, even more actually than 15. And 3 of them are north of 7 feet. Like, they fit a perfect need. 7 or 8 of them are really shifty, dynamic guard prospects, something you desperately need. So it's like this entire draft, this 2025 draft, was literally tailor-made for the Toronto Raptors. And you're going to get a top 16 pick. No matter what you do from here on out, you're not getting anything outside of top 16. So that's where you could say, okay, do you want number 1? Sure. You want a chance in the lottery? Sure. But no matter what happens, when the draft comes, you will add 2 probably very talented players in next year's draft with that first overall, with the first round pick and the second round pick. And that's all you want. You want 2 really talented young players coming into an organization that is known for developing talented young players. That's going to be good. This is good times ahead for the Raptors, man. Good times ahead for sure. And John Hamilton saying Charlotte, not an easy win. I think it should be if you're healthy. Yeah, I think the Raptors are better than the Charlotte Hornets. No matter how well LaMelo Ball plays, I think, I trust the Raptors to win those games. Anyways, we'll see. Look, the next, I want to say, like, I know I've been saying it for a while now, but like, you will know what this season is like at the end of this road trip. Sorry, at the end of this homestand. So to recap here, your next game is Friday at Miami. Then you have Miami, Indiana, OKC, Dallas, New York, Brooklyn, Houston. At home, at home, at home. It's like, yeah, it's a homestand, but it's a freaking bloodbath of teams that are way better than you coming into your building, right? If you think about it, Indiana is, if healthy, better than you. Miami, if healthy, they're better than you. OKC is better than you. Dallas is better than you. New York is better than you. I don't know if Dallas is going to have Luka back, but you're going to get tested so hard prior to Christmas. Now, the good news is this will be the cutoff point. I believe December 22nd is the cutoff point. If you go, okay, let's say you're 5-14 right now, right? So let's say you go 2 and hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's say you go 2-6, right? 2-6. So the math on that is you would be 7-20. 7-20. 7-20 is like, wrap up shop. 7-20. Like you're not going anywhere at 7-20, right? Because it's not like everything just gets super easy from there. You have Phoenix, then you have Boston, then you have Indiana, then you have Chicago, then you have back-to-back against Orlando, right? Your super, super, super stupid easy stretch is Utah, Washington, Philadelphia, Utah, Portland. Like, so your cutoff date to figure out who you are as a team is pretty much February 25th. This season has worked out beautifully for the Raptors. They have basically been gifted by the league a perfect schedule because the truth is, you could be in so much shit by the time you even get to February that the rationalization of, hey, we're 9-30, pull the plug on the season. Pull the plug on the season. Play Scottie and G Leaguers. Rest RJ every other game. Rest Immanuel quickly in games RJ Barrett plays. Boom. There's your tank. Tell Jakob Poeltl, oh, sorry, Jakob Poeltl has a foot strain. Gradey Dick, yeah, he's going to play this game. Jacoby's going to play this game. Davion Mitchell's playing like 48 minutes a night. He ain't ever coming off the court. Yo, we're good. It's going to be hard to out tank some of those teams that you got at the end, but it's not like there's a path forward for the Raptors where they get like 23 wins and they're like the sixth worst team in the league. There's also a path forward where they win like 35 games, 36 games, 37 games, and then they're in the play-in. I think that's the range right now. I'm at like 24 is like 22 is like the floor. No, 20. Let's say 20 is the floor and 35 to 36 is the ceiling. No, 38 is the ceiling. So it's still a really wide range, right? Like if you want to get to, like, if you just want to play this out for a second, just for anyone who's still sticking around and wants to play this out. We are at 5 wins right now. Okay. Can you find 30 more wins on this schedule? Right? We're almost in December right now. Can you find 30 more wins? It's hard though, right? 1 against Miami. That's 1. Let's say Indiana. You're going to have to be good, man. Okay, you beat Indiana. You beat Brooklyn. You beat Houston. Okay. Indiana again. We're at 5. We're already in February. Yo, is something missing from this? Why is January? Oh, no. What the hell happened to January? Oh, I see what I did. Okay. That makes sense. Sorry, I can see it now. It's bigger. Lord. Okay. So it is Miami, Indiana, OKC, Dallas, New York, Brooklyn, Houston. Then it's at New York, December 23rd, at Memphis versus Atlanta, at Boston versus Brooklyn versus Orlando versus Milwaukee. Wow. Okay. This is cooked. Okay. So January 9th, then you face, I apologize for what I said before. I literally skipped the middle and I just jumped apparently from December 22nd all the way to February 23rd. My bad. So missing the middle. Okay. So then you get Detroit. Detroit is an easy game, right? Like in theory, at Detroit should be a winnable game if you are healthy and they are healthy. Like it should be a winnable game, but it's been a dogfight. And the trend says they're going to sweep you because it's every series is a sweep basically. Then you got versus Golden State versus Boston versus Milwaukee at Orlando. And, you kind of missed the window when Milwaukee was playing like shit. And now you have to face them when they're playing pretty okay. Then you got at Atlanta. Atlanta's probably trying to make the play-in. I don't think they have their draft picks. So they have no incentive to tank whatsoever. And thankfully, you haven't played them once yet. And Dyson Daniels is going to make life living hell for RJ Barrett and Scottie Barnes. And then you got versus New Orleans, and who knows where they're at that point, but that's pretty much a tanking game potentially. So, I mean, am I seeing 30 more wins? Let's see. Okay. 30 more wins. Miami, that's 1. Versus Indiana, that's 2. Versus Brooklyn, that's 3. At Memphis, potentially. I don't know about that. Versus Atlanta, that's 4. Okay. Versus Brooklyn, that's 5. I'm trying to be very generous here. At Detroit, that's 6. Versus Orlando, Paolo will be back. Let's say versus Orlando is 7. One of the at Atlantas is 8. Washington, 9. New Orleans, 10. Chicago, 11. Ooh, three-game win streak. Pizza party. That's 11. Then you get versus Memphis. Maybe one of those versus. That's 12. Okay. Then you get Houston. I don't know about at anywhere. At Philly. Okay. 13. Okay. And then you get probably a couple of losses there. Probably like 4 losses at home. Let's say you win one of those. So that's at 14, 15. Okay. So you're at 20 wins. Okay. 20 wins on the season so far. And then you got Phoenix, Boston. So you're at 20 wins. And you're at February 25th and you're at 20 wins. And mathematically, you're not running the table on the entire league. But then if you really do push for it, I'm just saying, hypothetically, let's just say, how many wins are there from February till the end of the year? At Indiana could be a win. At Chicago could be a win. Versus Utah could be a win. That's 3 wins. So 3 wins there. Washington, 4, 5. Philly, 6. Utah, 7. Portland, 8. San Antonio, potentially, I don't know, 9. Washington, 10. Brooklyn, possibly 11. Versus Charlotte, 12. Portland, again, 13. Chicago, 14. Detroit, 15. Charlotte, 16. Potentially last game against San Antonio, 17. So, if you get to 20 wins by February 23rd, there's a way to like run the table on the entire league, to which point you would basically, okay, I have lost my, okay. I don't know, man. This is kind of like the Raptors did this once, they were out of it and then they ran the table on a pretty weak schedule with Mo Pete and Chris and not Mo Pete and Chris Bosh, Mo Pete, Chris Childs. I think Keon Clark was on that team. If y'all remember that, the Raptors rallied off super late. There's like super easy schedule. Like is the easiest schedule in the league. I cannot imagine an easier schedule. So that's the point, right? So if you get to the February deadline and you've got like 16 wins, it will be very easy to sell. At which point I hope the Raptors sell aggressively. Like sell everything that's not staying, like literally, and you'll be able to justify it and the fans will back it up and then you can tank properly. But if you keep Jakob Poeltl and you refuse to bench Scottie Barnes and you're going to keep RJ and IQ in the lineup, then you are going to run the table at the end of the year. And if you are going to run the table against those teams, I don't know what that really proves. I'm just being honest. I don't know what that proves. Also, I don't know what the Raptors 5-14 record right now proves either, because they haven't been healthy. So it's like you don't even know who this team is. So I think now that they're going to get healthy, I think this season, at least from the organization perspective, will be effectively determined in December. I think December becomes the most important month of the year for the Raptors. You will get back Immanuel quickly during that time. You will get Kelly Olynyk back. You'll get Bruce Brown back. And you will be able to test a healthy version of your roster against OKC, Dallas, and New York, Indiana, possibly Indiana, Houston, New York, Memphis, Atlanta, Boston. December 31st becomes, for me, like last year, it was a cutoff for the Raptors. That's when they traded OG Anunoby. I think it'll once again come up as a cutoff for me. If you are healthy with IQ, granted, you haven't had a lot of time with that team. If you're healthy at that time and you go over, like you're not doing well, these teams are smoking you, you're not competitive with OKC and whatever, I would not be surprised at all to see this team pull the plug. However, if when you're healthy, you are right there with the OKC, right there with the Dallas, don't be surprised if this team decides to make a trade to help them win now. Just don't be surprised. Okay? All right. Everyone drop a like. Appreciate you as always. Will Jacoby become a good shooter? Terry, are you kidding me? He is a good shooter. What are you looking at? Will Jacoby become a good shooter? He was literally drafted as one of the best shooters in college basketball. Okay, I'm sure we'll talk about this at some other point. He's a really good shooter. You could see his jump shot, right? Don't look at the 2 for 10. Fuck the 2 for 10. Great shooters go 2 for 10 all the time. All right, talk to y'all later. Have a great one. Good night. Enjoy. Good win. And if you're looking to fall asleep to something, that draft video could use a few more watches. All right, talk to y'all later. Have a good one.